If I record to the cloud, will it be there for later download, Tyra?
Yes, it should.
Okay. I don't know how to do that, so I usually do it tomorrow.
I'll just share it with you.
Okay. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and get started, letting you know that this call is recorded. I'm going to share my screen again, and then we're going to do some introductions.
I'm going to leave and come back in, so give me a minute.
All right. Sorry, guys. I tried moving my computer, and that was a bad idea. Okay. So this is the 5th virtual education committee meeting of the Kentucky Alliance. It is day 104, I believe. Is that accurate? Am I still right on the day it is for Justice for Breonna with all the protests? Does anybody know?
It's the number of days of occupation.
Right. Is it 104? Is that the right number?
Yeah.
I'm going to do a little bit of housekeeping first. This meeting is being recorded. Please mute your phone except when speaking. Please don't repeat what others say if we're going through the introductions or adding our commentary, just so that it keeps the meeting moving along and brief. If it's been covered, yield to the next speaker. Not all ideas are bad ideas. This is actually a slide I brought back from our first meeting because I wanted to make sure that we remembered that that this is coalition building work and it's brainstorming work, and people need to feel comfortable bringing ideas forward, but it doesn't necessarily mean that every idea will be accepted in the end. And I'll talk a little bit more about that closer to the end of the presentation. But again, if you are uncomfortable rocking the boat in order to demand justice, this coalition is probably not for you. I wanted to reiterate that again. And then if you would like to speak, please type STACK in the comments and we'll call your name. We're going to do introductions next. And if you could, in a minute or less, each just tell us who you are, what organizations that you represent. And again, you're not making a commitment on behalf of your organization, but you are telling us that you are a member of that organization and you are in a position to take this message back to your team and to your leadership and invite them to continue to participate in this coalition process. And then what is your position on the tax increase? So name, organization, and your position on the proposed tax increase that's on the November ballot. We've done this past meetings as well, but I'm going to add a little bit of flair to this question this time before we go around, because I want to explain where the coalition has landed, and we're now refining that position statement. So as a coalition, our position on the tax increase is nuanced, okay? So we do support the tax increase as long as is some of the language that we've been hearing and using. And that includes, you know, a commitment to racial justice and the improvements that we need to see on student assignment and our list of demands and those types of things. But we're also hearing people who are in this coalition who also say we don't support the tax increase. Like they currently have not come forward in support of the tax increase, such as the Kentucky Alliance. Kentucky Alliance has not been able to get consensus and pass a vote in support of the tax increase. So right now, our organization would stand closer to the we don't support the tax increase unless position statement. And then of course, outside of those boundaries, we've got there's no way in heck anyone would ever support this tax increase in our organization, period, whatsoever. And that would include the Tea Party group, right? The people who organized the petition against the tax increase early on. It might include some of the quote unquote end busing or anti-JCPS voices that the critics of JCPS, possibly those who don't have kids in our public school system, who think that, they pay too many taxes to us, to the district as it is, that kind of thing. So that's that extreme. And then the other extreme is, no matter what, we support this tax increase. We trust the district and anyone who might be in leadership in the future to do what's best for our students. And so that would be that extreme. So what I'm going to do is ask you to go around and quantify your position. Like, are you a 2? Are you a 3? Are you a 4? And if so, then you fit within this nuanced range that the coalition represents. Or are you a 0 or a 1 or a 5 or a 6? That makes sense, everybody? So I'm going to go back to the question, the screen that just asked you to do the introduction. So name, organization, and your position on a tax increase. And I'm going to just go through and call on people to keep it moving. Greg Tishner, I'm going to start with you.
Okay, Greg Titchener, ECE teacher at Waller Williams and member of JCTA. I'm a representative for Louisville, showing up for racial justice with the Kentucky Alliance, and involved with other groups, including Kentuckians for the Commonwealth and Sowers of Justice. And 4.5, did I answer all the questions?
Yes.
Okay.
You did. And you mentioned the Kentucky Alliance board. You are one of the board members on the Kentucky Alliance, and also serving on the education committee. And I'm pointing that out because there are 4 of us on the call. Oh, no, 5. Ike also, and KA 6. Sorry. I just want to make sure people are aware who the board members are that are on this call as well. Did I miss anyone? Board member wise? Alliance. Okay. Next up, Chris Harmer. You're next on my screen.
Sure, Chris Harmer, here as co-chair of Fellowship of Reconciliation, chair of ARROS, and a member of the Kentucky Alliance. I'd say I'm out in the 5 to 6 range here.
All right, Michelle Penix.
Was that?
Michelle Penix, she's muted. You're muted.
I'm Michelle Penix, retired JCPS principal, Principal Penix owner, as well as representing a group of retired JCPS Black administrators and a coalition of Black churches in the West End of Louisville. Personally, I'm a 2, but representing those groups, I would say that they are a 3.5.
What? Ike, can you hear me?
Yes, I'm ready. I'm Ike Thacker, or Isaac Marion Thacker the Fourth, or maybe I should do those in reverse order. I'm a board member of the Kentucky Alliance and have in the past been a co-chair and secretary, and I'm on the steering committee of the local chapter of the Fellowship of Reconciliation and in another group called Aim Higher. And personally, I'd say I'm about a 5, and being a member of the Alliance primarily for this conversation, because my only formal connection with ARROS was as a representative of the Alliance along with Tyra. I'll just say that the organization I'm representing is maybe a 3.5, since I like the nuanced position. I personally support the tax increase entirely. The nuanced position I can go along with, and I think the Alliance, I would say maybe is about a 3.5.
All right, Tia.
Tia Edison, board member of the Kentucky Alliance, Black Caucus, chair of JCTA, and of course a teacher. So I'm basically at like a 1.5, and that's just because we have a $1.6 billion budget, and we've been having achievement gaps for over the 12 years I've been there. So that's why.
Thank you. Matt Kaufman, welcome.
Hey, thank you for the invite. Matt Kaufman, teacher at Marion Seymour School and JCTA board member. Gay invited me. Really happy to be here. I'm a 5 on this because I think the tax increase is really important. But hearing these low numbers, I'm really wanting to listen to that and get details and see what we can bring back to JCTA to create conversation there and express concerns to management and JCPS.
Thank you. AA.
Gay, did you call on me?
I did. Do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and where you stand on this tax increase?
I'm K.A. Owens. I'm on the board of directors of the Kentucky Alliance Against Racism and Political Repression. I'm also a member of Kentuckians for the Commonwealth.
Today I was trying to.
Sorry, I muted her. Go on.
And what I've been saying on this particular issue is that Americans are not overtaxed, they're underpaid. Americans have been underpaid for 30 years. So it's not the amount of tax, but however, since Americans are underpaid, whenever there's a tax increase of any kind, they're going to jump up and down and start screaming. So, so where I am personally, I'm not sure it's relevant, but the Alliance has more of the nuanced approach. That's what the Alliance has. And so as organizationally, I support that. Does that help? Do I need to pick a number?
I would like you to pick a number.
Well, it probably should be whatever Tyra says, but how about a 3?
That's a nice neutral number. Let's go with Tyra next. She may not be able to. Bobby Joe Kingery, welcome.
Hey guys, sorry about that. I'm Bobby Joe Kingery with 15 District PTA. I'm also a Civil Fellow graduate. I am currently at a 5.6 on the scale. And I am here to bring feedback to the 15th District and see if we can't all get on the same page.
Thank you. Who is the extension 1998?
I'm Frances Cotton. I'm a member of the League of Women Voters Louisville, the Education Committee.
Excellent. Hi, Frances. Thank you for joining us. Do you want to tell us a little bit about where you stand on the tax increase?
Oh, I think it's needed. I don't know how to put a number with that.
Definitely on the green end of the spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
Yes.
Anything else you want to add?
No.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us.
Need to see where the money will be allocated and if it will, at that point, because even if they vote this year, the changes and the building and upgrades and student support services really won't go into effect right away. So you're talking about money that might look different in 2 years than it does now. So it might not go as far as what I'm saying.
Right. All right. Thank you. Tyra, did you have a chance to?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I see Latasha made a comment in the chat. She had to hop off and she'll be back, but she is a 3.5 to 4. She's with Louisville PTO. She's also a GCIPL fellow. Since she's not here to introduce herself, I'll tell you a little bit about what I know. She's got 5 children and in and out of JCPS as well. And did I miss anybody besides Jess? Jess, do you want to weigh in? I didn't want to put you on the spot unless you want to say something.
I think it's best if I don't, but I'm Jess Clark and I'm a reporter with WFPL. Thanks for letting me listen in.
Did I miss Tyler's number?
No, she might be on the, she said there's a work call she had to get on, so she may have to pay attention to that right now. We'll get her when she comes back. I would like to, well, I'll first introduce myself. I'm Gay Adelman. I am on the Kentucky Alliance Board and on the Education Committee, and also a co-founder of Dear JCPS and Save Our Schools Kentucky. My son graduated from Shawnee in 2016, so he was there from 2012 to 2016, which is how I became aware of the disparities in the student assignment plan. My personal number, like how I'm going to vote in November, is probably a 5. Like, I know that we need this. It's something that Chris and others on this call have spoken at board meetings. Even before Dr. Polio was our superintendent, we've told them they needed to take a more aggressive stance on their tax increase revenue generation. So I know how important this is, but as a member of the Kentucky Alliance and a board, and being someone who has brought this proposal to the Alliance board every month for the last 9 meetings, I am aware that the community is not ready to support the tax increase. So it isn't, what's important is that we bring everyone along. What's important is that we have these conversations and we slow down and we don't take votes for granted, because I want this to pass. And in order for it to pass, we've got to have more people who are going to be willing to turn up in November and vote for it. That's my personal position. I know there are people on this call who, when I first started promoting the tax increase, would pull me aside and say, hold up, we're not ready to support this tax increase. We need to see evidence that these things are going to be done. And we need, this is just talk. And Dr. Polio may not always be our superintendent, even if we do think he has the right intentions. And, the board could change. We've got a Tea Party candidate running for office right now. We've got another board member who apparently thinks that $50 million investment in the West End and choice is sufficient, and why are they still asking for more kind of response to the letter that we sent last week? So I am being an ally and an accomplice, and using my white privilege to be a voice for the community that is still not ready to support this tax increase. So when Ike mentioned that he thought that the Alliance was about a 3.5 or something, that's actually not accurate. I would say the Alliance is still below the 1.5 number, because we haven't been able to get them to approve supporting this. So far, the only motion that's passed has been allowing us to create a to revise the Coalition for the People's Agenda to include the JCPS list of demands. So that's what we're doing. We're working as we're reviving the Coalition for the People's Agenda, and education is one of 9 components in the People's Agenda. This is the brochure from 2002 that shows the initial 8 that we had. When I recognized that not everybody else was on board, I started asking people if they would be interested in moving in this direction, and we've been trying to move in this direction since last year. Actually, there's been pieces of it that have been coming together. So to finish the sentence, we do support the tax increase as long as, or we don't support the tax increase unless the district demonstrates a good faith effort in supporting the Coalition for the People's Agendas. Reasonable demands. Does that sound like something that anyone on this call would object to? Would this be a message that you could take back to your organization for their support. And even if you support the tax increase, recognizing that there are other groups that we need to hold the door open for and wait for and bring along and get the commitments, get the demonstration from the district that they are making a good faith effort. And we'll talk about what that looks like further down the call. So maybe I won't ask you to answer that question just yet, unless people want to just respond. I'm not going to go through the room and ask everybody to answer, but I'd like anyone who's willing to share to go ahead and do so. And if you could maybe type stack in the chat, then I'll know who wants to talk.
Would you ask that question one more time again, Gay? What are you asking us to share?
If the language of our position statement was, and you can word it either way because I think it's interchangeable, we do support the tax increase as long as, or we don't support the tax increase unless the district demonstrates a good faith effort in supporting the Coalition for the People's Agenda's reasonable demands. Michelle.
Well, I'll go back to we don't support the tax increase unless. I am very, very concerned that we are not being responsive enough to the community at this time, and particularly the Black community and those students in poverty in our district. We know that close to 50% of our students would probably serve under that title, and we are not getting specifics as to what this money will go for. We have not had specifics about what the money is going for. I got into this conversation with Sadiqa online this weekend when she advocated for the tax increase, and I asked her, what are we getting for that? And again, she made her point clear that, you know, she believed that it was something that was much needed. And as a principal of a poor and minority school for 22 years, I know that money is always an issue. But I also know when money comes in, the way it's distributed in our district does not go to the schools that need it the most. And the example I gave was just when we think about mental health. If there is a school, which there is right now in the west end of Louisville, that has had 100 kids who have been admitted to a mental health institution for more than 3 days, and they were given one mental health therapist, and there is a school on the east end of the city who has 15 to 30 kids who see a counselor, and they're given one mental health therapist. That is not equity. And we see that over and over and over again. You can come and look at the library at Mill Creek Elementary. I was there for 22 years. The first year I was there in 1999, I was told that Mill Creek was next on the list for a library. I left this year and there is still no new library. It is 2 classrooms put together. If you've ever been to Simple Elementary and you see their staff restroom that is underneath a stairwell and looks like something out of a cave, you have to begin to ask yourself, where is the money going? I hear grandiose plans about things that they want to do, what it will look like, but we can't ignore the people in the buildings and the buildings that are already there that are not part of this new buildings thought. We're going to, you know, make this new middle school in the West End. We want to put this school here and do this. But what about the schools that are already there? And so I know that it's desperately needed. I can't believe we've turned down the increase over so many years. That was a huge mistake. But I also know that if we don't ask before, we will not get answers afterwards. So I'm committed to asking the board to tell us clearly what it is they plan to spend that extra money on as it relates to schools that are currently servicing kids and not just the building of new schools.
So I would like to piggyback after her, being that her and I are both Black educators and been in the system for a while. And out of all the calls, ours was probably the lowest. I think we need to listen to Black women. When she said something about mental health, I will say that most Black children don't even go to OLA. They are forced to go to Minor Daniels, like alternative schools. They don't even get the opportunity to get the counseling at some of these schools. I will also, this will be the hill that I die on, is we just passed an emergency clause in this year for every police officer to have a gun in schools. And the only ones they target is our children. So I can go out here and say that tax money is getting ready to pay for those police officers. Because we didn't have the money before, but now maybe we need it for that. We still have an achievement gap. It's ridiculous. Like nobody brings us to the table and really follows our lead. We might be brought to the table, but we're disregarded. I know as an educator in some of in my work, not now because I'm at a really good school, but before, I'm always considered incompetent. So yeah, and trauma with kids is always considered just behavior problems, and disciplinary, punitive issues come from that. So yeah, I'm not convinced. I am not convinced that this money will do anything to help specifically Black children. Black students matter, and they have not, I don't see no policies in place at all that proves, like all this lip talk, I'm done with lip talk. So I need to see the policies. I need to see where Black students matter. And then until I see that, I'm not advocating for it. I'm actually gonna advocate against it. That's what I will do.
I stand with you, Tia. Anyone else want to add anything?
Let me say this other thing, because Tia got me riled up, and they say good preaching make you want to preach, good teaching make you want to teach. I'd like to give everybody a really current example. We know that currently our district received over $36 million in COVID CARES Act money. We know that about $6 million of that went to private schools. They spent another 18. That leaves about $11 million of CARES Act money. And if I'm understanding and able to interpret correctly, that money is meant to support those most affected by the coronavirus within the system. And I have been advocating on behalf of Black and poor children in the West End, Shively, and Newburgh communities for the past 8 weeks to no avail. Not only have I not been given a seat at the table, and I'm talking about on Newburgh Road, but I've not so much as been able to get a phone call and had to work through different agencies in the community just to advocate for NTI hubs in those communities. We know for a fact that right now, families that are more affluent in our community are hiring retired teachers, current teachers, college students, paying before, after, supplementing their children's education. We know at the same time today and every day since the first day of school, as I drive the streets of the West End on purpose, I see child after child after child not involved in any school setting, not using their Chromebook, not on NTI, and not because they don't want to, but they don't have a supervisor. They don't have a parent at home during that time that can make sure it happens. So we said, let's be proactive. JCPS, let's create these hubs. This is how it can be done. This is how much it will cost. We actually gave them a figure for staffing of 1.2 million, which is not even 10% of the CARES Act money that came in, if we were going to use that. And still no answer. The latest word is that on Monday night, they will consider a memorandum of understanding around the use of substitute teachers in those hubs, but no further details, no communication, and our kids are suffering at a time where JCPS continually uses, we have a racial equity policy. We are proud. We are one of the first in the country to have our own policy. The action behind that is what matters, what happens on the student desk. And right now, unfortunately, there has not been a good faith effort on the part of JCPS to hear the cries of those communities and to use their money that they already have to support. So that's another reason why I can say with another however many million this would bring in, it would benefit my community or the communities that surround it.
Absolutely. Thank you for that update. I'm going to pause for a second, and I see there's somebody, I see Jesse on the call. That's not Jess Clark, right? Jess is... Maybe Jess dropped off and came back under her iPhone.
Hi, sorry, I switched devices, so I think that's, okay. I'm still listening, just
okay.
Listening.
I just want to make sure somebody else hadn't entered the room that we hadn't introduced. And Tyra, one more time, do you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you just fine.
Is Tyra, can you hear us? Okay, so I'm gonna keep going. Is there anyone else who wants to comment on this statement? I'm hearing from Tia and Michelle that the "we don't support the tax increase unless" is the more appropriate language to use for our position. So can we get some kind of consensus or discussion around the language of our position to just use the second bullet?
I just wanted to say what I've heard so far, and that what Tyra and I can both bring back to JCTA. And I'd be really curious if when we get something written up to bring there and see if we can get you in the room. I don't see any reason why we cannot do that, to have a couple representatives here, especially you, Michelle, especially you, Tia. What I've heard so far is that we need to focus on kids who are in poverty, and particularly our Black students right now, as they're facing massive systemic racism and injustice issues. Yes, we all want renovated buildings for every single school, but school beautification and renovations need to take place first in those schools that have been neglected historically. And we need to focus, this money should be spent in a way where equity is the lens and needs to be at the forefront. And we want some guarantees in that. Mental health has come up again and again and again. And what I'm hearing is that kids shouldn't have to leave their schools. They should be able to stay there, to get those services there. And that becomes part of how that school does business. What I've heard is something that we would adamantly campaign against this is there should be no police in our buildings. That's traumatizing towards our students. It's proven to be ineffective. I also heard that we need learning hubs in our communities. Again, specifically communities who've been facing injustice and who are getting the brunt of the financial crisis right now. So as a JCTA board member, what I'm gonna do, and I'm gonna work with Tyra on this, is write something to Brent and say, we wanna address this at our next meeting. And I'm gonna ask for permission for a couple representatives to come and speak to us. And I'm still taking notes and still listening.
Thank you, Matt. Anyone else before I move to the next slide?
And I'm chatting with Carla as you all are talking, and we are currently typing up a a proposal to bring to the 15th district at their next board meeting to see what we can and cannot get behind and what we are allowed to do. Me and Carla are 2 people on an entire board, and we have to get the entire board to vote with us in order to make a change. And I've told Gay in the past, we are trying to make 15th district better. And in order to do that, we have to have the entire board on the same page in order to do that. So we are going to make a proposal to them about what you guys are talking about and see if we can't get them to jump on board with us. And that's kind of where we're standing, but I am still taking notes, and me and Carla are chatting back and forth. She is going to try to jump on the call as soon as she can.
Great, thank you for that.
And I just wanted to check, Michelle and Tia, is it okay if I petition to get you a speaking role at our next meeting?
Yeah, that's fine with me.
Absolutely.
And I will add, the central gym does not have air conditioning either. Like, and that's ridiculous. But anyways, go ahead. I just want to throw it in. I forgot to throw it in earlier when you was talking about maintenances and stuff.
And I think too, to that point, the first point that you led with, Matt, I do want to also be clear that there's a connection between this tax increase and student assignment, in the sense that the way that I've talked about it is, if there are 20 pieces to the student assignment plan, which it seems like there are, step number 18, 19, and 20 involve the things that Ms. Rice has asked for at Shawnee to help support the students there. And the reality is there's a cost behind that, but those things should be step 1, 2, and 3 before we start talking about making Shawnee the choice for West End students. So again, that goes back to funding, because the things she's asking about, which all schools that serve poor and Black students are asking for: smaller class size, mental health therapists, the resources in terms of academic materials and library books, things like that, that are outdated at so many of those schools. So I don't want to just limit it to the facilities portion. I think people need to know that there's an intense need outside of more than just facilities.
Absolutely. Chris Harmer, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, Arrows has taken a position in favor of this tax increase. And I've heard nothing from any of you folks that I disagree with in terms of problems that need to be addressed, including, Michelle, your concern is one I know Diane Porter has, and has really, I think, struggled with the student assignment vote because of that, because just building a new building and then warehousing Black and brown students in it is worse than the situation we have now. What you need to do is provide all those resources, and I think she's fighting for that. And that's something, all these things that have been mentioned are things that need to be fought for. My concern is the word that Matt used is, how do we guarantee how this money is going to be spent? And I just don't see how the way the board works, they can guarantee that we're really forced to say, do we have the best superintendent that we trust the most, and have 3 Black members on the Board of Education who are elected by their constituencies? Are we going to have a better chance to get this money when we have an agenda that we're already arguing for? We're just trying to get a larger coalition to argue on the same points. That's the concern I have, is that if we miss it this time, we may have a concerted effort on a lot of these things and a prioritized list as well, which would be very helpful. But we may not have the right people in management to do that. And that, I mean, Gabe pointed that out, we could have a new superintendent. Polio is apparently a hot property now. And we do have board elections now and in 2 years. So that's my concern, not the content here at all.
So we have a new person on the call, Dorothy Foster. Is that Ed by some chance?
Big pardon?
Who's Dorothy Foster?
Yeah, Dorothy's an invitation of mine. She's involved with ASALA, that the Association for the Study of African American Life and History. And Barbara Boyd's trying to get over here, but in the meantime, Dorothy thought she might plug in and listen on the education side of things. And she's a firm advocate of bringing Black education into the classroom. But would you like to introduce yourself further, Dorothy?
No, I think that's sufficient, Greg. I'm a newbie, so I'll just listen for right now.
Welcome, welcome.
Thank you.
I apologize. I invited someone named Ed. I thought his name was Foster, but I think it's Fawcett, actually. So I was just confused as to who had just joined us. I apologize for that. Did anyone else want to comment on this before I move to the next slide? All right, the last sentence I have on here is just regarding the coalition building work. We're moving forward with this strategy and this this nuanced position, and we are inviting organizations to join the coalition and help us refine the list of demands as we go. The coalition, I'll explain more about what the Coalition for the People's Agenda is and what everything that rolls up into that statement actually means. But we believe we are on the right side of history, and so it's not a matter of if other organizations want to join this coalition, it's really a matter of when, because as people begin to see where this is headed, I think that we're going to see more and more people recognize that this is the right approach. I heard Chris's concern about how do you
Gay, you're frozen up. And I don't know what direction she was going in. Well, you do have a minute, Dorothy. I think you're a fantastic person. Do you mind to take a minute and give us a little more of your background and where you're coming from while she
Well,
reconnects?
Okay, I'll try. I'm a retired nurse, and I've always been interested in, after retirement, doing something in the community, joining an organization that was more to what I believed in for the city of Louisville. And as a nurse, some of the things that I had seen that were, to me, not appropriate or not right for our, African Americans in Louisville. As a nurse, health education is my priority. And I was one of the pioneers to start the Park Duval Community Health Center, which was an answer to, when young women were having children and the babies were dying in larger numbers in the West End. And Park Duval was something that was there to answer the call to help young mothers raise their babies and have babies that are thriving, alive. So that's why I went to Park Duval to work, from Louisville General Hospital, which was also a public hospital for indigent and poor. That's where I trained. And so I've always been wanting to be in that area, doing something for people who I just felt like I need to help them, and I needed to be there for them. And so I used my education for that purpose. I don't know what else to say except that, and looking at Kentucky Alliance and being invited when Mr. Moppet worked for Park Duval, that's how I became involved with Kentucky Alliance. And I would buy a ticket every December and go to the dinner and listen to the programs. And so I'm still here. I'm still around. I'm still an advocate and for Kentucky Alliance, and I think I'll always be.
Thank you for being. Did Gay make? Oh, she's here. Hey, I see your face.
Sorry,
Here it is.
I couldn't find my mute button. My unmute button. Okay, sorry about that. I was just summarizing this slide when I guess my internet went out. And it's not a matter of if people get on board with this position, it's a matter of when, because we are on the right side of history. And the next slide, so on this statement, I have the words reasonable demands. For the next slide, I'm going to define what I mean by reasonable demands. And I was playing around with something kind of to try to be catchy. I'm not sure if this is going to stick or not. I actually had the 4 R's first, like just 4 words that we can quickly, you know, when we have our press conferences or talk to the media or whatever, what are the things that all of this rolls up under? And the REAP, we want to see a live REAP of the student assignment plan. At the last board meeting on Tuesday, Dr. Polio told the board that there had been a REAP done on the current student assignment plan, but I had already done an open records request prior to that meeting requesting a REAP, and I was told that one did not exist. I was told by the open records attorney that there had been pieces of the current student assignment plan or the proposal. Actually, I think it was mostly the proposal, pieces of the proposal that had been put through the REAP, but not something that took a look at the wholesale A to Z impacts that the plan has. And so that was kind of confusing, and we still don't have an answer a week later whether or not a REAP exists or not. Joe Marshall was the one who asked for that on the call. I messaged him today and asked him if he ever got a copy of the REAP, and he said no. I know Chris Kolb came to a BLM meeting last week, and somebody on that call asked him if there had been a REAP, and he said yes. And they said, well, can we get a copy? And he said yes. And as far as I know, that has not been provided. So I think there's some kind of communication breakdown as to whether or not there's been a REAP. So our demands still continue to include that we want a live REAP so that we can, so the E was earn the vote. So evaluate the current student assignment plan before they vote on the recommendations, which is on the agenda for September 29th, unless they push it back again. So that's one of our demands. And then some of the bullets just kind of explain what that looks like. So it needs to be live so that we can see how they formulate it and all the thought processes that go into it. Or it can be video or what have you, but we want to see it worked out on paper. That was actually a request that the 15th District PTA made of John Marshall's office prior to NTI starting, and they're still waiting. Implement immediate solutions to barriers. So some of the things that we talked about on prior calls, I'm not going to rehash them, but there are videos of our prior calls if you're interested in knowing what they are, but they include dual resides for everyone, not just the West End, and they include removing the application barrier for non-reside students who have to apply to attend a school close to home. Evaluate the disparities and educate the community. Again, we've been assuming that the community won't go along with an equitable student assignment plan, so we don't even talk about it. So that the REAP needs to be that conversation that the district takes back to the community and shows non-West End families how they can be part of the solution. And then to dismantle the structurally racist plan. Jess and I were talking earlier, Jess Clark with WFPL and I were talking earlier, and you know, if you were to just wipe the slate clean and start from scratch, and every neighborhood had a quality school in it, that would look like equal, and we don't even have equal. So we need to work toward equitable, which means flipping the script. And that starts with dismantling the plan that's currently structurally racist. We have to stop protecting some of the structures that exist. And then we've done damage. We've seen the damage that's been caused. So we have to reverse and repair that damage. And that also goes back to the mental health counseling and the other supports and recruiting and maintaining teachers, quality teachers and curriculum, and the list goes on. So we will further delve into that when we get the People's Agenda, the Education Coalition, Education Committee component for the Coalition for the People's Agenda will go into even further detail along those lines. So we have to start with something high level that we can communicate quickly. So evaluate student assignment plan. We need to divest and invest. And so I've played around with an A word, an anti-racist budget. We need to see the budget take on an anti-racist stance. And that includes getting rid of the police that are currently on the budget, but also investing in the hubs and the things we talked about, the healthcare and the hierarchy of needs. So I kind of played with the 3 H's just to give it something that's easy to pull our memory techniques, right? So the reactionary and punitive things that we need to divest from include testing also, and more along, and there's more than that we can get into when we get into the deeper levels. The R would be the resolution. We want to see a resolution on the board agenda by the September 29th board meeting, similar to the Safe Haven resolution. And on last week's call, we had Lisa Wilner joining us, and she talked about how she was able to research and suggest and champion the resolution that passed in 2017 for the Safe Haven for our immigrant students right after Trump was elected, because there was a similar climate where there was a lot of fear and a lot of attention, a lot of concern. And because that precedent has been set, I think it's very reasonable that we ask the board to pass a resolution in support of the Coalition for the People's Agenda. And it is a working document. It actually was formed in 2002, and that took place when the city and county budgets were merging. So what's different this time is we're adding the JCPS budget to our governing document that sets priorities. We know budgets are our priority document, and so we are demanding that JCPS demonstrate with their budget in their resolution to support the Coalition for the People's Agenda. So it's not a guarantee, like Chris said, we can't make them guarantee it, but it's symbolic and it's a good faith gesture. And so that's the R in this earn the vote. And then the N goes back to safe schooling and not returning to in-person school until it's safe. And we've talked about COVID and safety along those lines, but also, and we talked about HVAC requirements as being one of our demands. But we also have racist educators, curriculum, and teaching practices that are unsafe for some of our students. And we need to triage the highest needs and make sure that when we do return to in-person schooling, that we focus on the students that have been left behind by the poor prioritization of budget in the past. And again, only when it's safe. And I'm going to pause here and see if anybody wants to chime in or point out something I've overlooked, or if you like the 4 R's better than the earn. Go ahead, Tia.
I just want to chime in when you said racist educators, because I know Matthew is taking some stuff back. That is one thing that JCTA can do, is put in some type of policies to identify which educators are writing up kids the most, or if they're getting a lot of allegations or calls from parents, or even but there's nothing in place, because I've been on the board and I've advocated for that, and I still do not see anything put in place to any type of policy from JCTA to identify who it is, and then whatever you do after that, whether it be training or punitive measurements or whatever. But that's something definitely that Matthew can also pass the baton to you, because I tried for 5 years and didn't get nothing.
Absolutely. And that reminds me, I'm just going to read something real quick, because somebody bringing it like Michelle did earlier with a real-time context, I got a message today in the Dear JCPS email box from the BSU, the teacher who is the BSU coordinator at one of our schools, and she sent out an email to the staff that had some language in it that got tone policed, as you know what that's like, and it said, the quote from the teacher, the racist teacher, and see, this is soft racism, right? This is not, I'm going to come right out and tell you I'm anti-Black or anything. I'm just going to do some things that try to create barriers and make it harder for you to do the things that need to be done. She wrote, this racist teacher wrote back to this BSU organizer, I'm respectfully asking that you refrain from making comments like you did in your message to the staff that implies anything about your personal opinions on these matters. For example, quote, the continued death of Black folks at the hands of police and others, including Breonna Taylor and David McAtee, end quote. Instead, could you omit these kinds of statements that do not allude to one side or the other? Maybe reword it like, we know it's been a long summer and there's been a lot happening in our city that affects students in different ways. Seriously? Am I still on? Because I see another.
Yeah, I put a stack in there, Gay.
So do you guys have any thoughts on that? Is that an example? Is that a good example of the kinds of things that should be coached and retrained and
Absolutely. 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 Just by writing that email, she's making a political statement. She's trying to silence someone, and or obviously it seems to me she's arguing for an other side, which is the side of not respecting life,
right,
and acknowledging what's been going on. It's not an opinion
right,
that Black lives have been shot by police officers. It's a tragic fact. And so, fortunately, I'm at a school right now that's acknowledging these facts and fostering these conversations, and it's going at a turtle's pace, but it's there. Tyra, I heard you about racist educators, ways to hold them accountable. We're looking at if there's allegations against them, calls. I think there needs to be maybe some kind of report option, and what does that look like? It's a tricky thing because lots of there's going to be, with this kind of stuff, people's racism comes out when they're, because like, why would you be against this, right? But there's going to be teachers who would argue that this is not the union's job, people that it's going to turn into witch hunts. So we need to make sure it's not that, and make sure what we're putting forth is like, we need to think of every kid in every seat, and our kids are traumatized right now, and this is protecting our kids. That's why we're doing this. So I'll think on that. I'll definitely present it, and then I want to get you and Michelle in that room talking. And what I'm working on right now is a Google document that I'll put in the chat of just priorities. And then just maybe we can look through, is this something we want to send towards JCTA? So we want to talk about these points.
And Matt, listen, you could easily remind Brent of the history when LGBTQ issues were first raised. There was pushback, but shortly thereafter, there weren't these same considerations as to the other side. When the American with Disabilities Act came into play, there wasn't this consideration of, can you rephrase it and say it another way? It is only when you're talking about Black kids and the Black community that suddenly we need to find another way to phrase it. Yeah. And again, I just want to say that goes back to why I think it's so important that we say we do not support unless, because the thing that you all have to get with us on is the fact that it won't happen otherwise. It just won't happen. And I know that if you're in an East End school or a South End school, you're saying, you know, well, our kids need this, this, and this. The reality is they're going to get it. But that is not the case with a third of the schools in JCPS right now. 35 of our schools at the elementary, middle, and high school level will not get what they need unless JCPS puts it in writing. And again, that for whatever that's worth. But if we don't hold their feet to the flame on this before this vote, it won't happen afterwards.
Michelle, Tia, I feel like if you're in the room, every single JCTA board member is going to be nodding their heads and listening to you talk. And we're going to look at this agenda up. There is no other side. It's either you care about kids or you don't. You know, so, and I think we hit that hard. And I just said that I just know there's going to be teachers who say this. And I think it would be good if we address that argument before they even can articulate it. Put that in our language. There is no other side to this. Either you care about kids or you don't. I'm going to type this up and throw it in the chat.
Can I ask a question of the, so I heard Matt talking about them doing some good stuff at his school, but I'm at another school where we've got just an incredibly diverse staff, and some fall very hard into that, you know, borderline covert and pushing overt racist in our building. So we started day one with an incredible slideshow in which I thought it was district wide, but it might have been put together by my administration, where they put up 40 slides that had to do with racism. They said, we're not moving forward until 2 or 3 people chime in on each one. And it made for fantastic dialogue. We're also studying White Fragility is our fall book, and then we're studying another in the spring. And I just feel like it's the pathway to break through the blindfolds that a lot of white educators wear. And I thought it was a district measure, but I'm curious to hear from the other teachers as to whether or not that's the case, because I think it's the right path.
Anyone else?
Also, they have to stop misdiagnosing our kids with behavior disorders when truly they've had trauma and they need some type of mental support. That's one thing that I'm so sick and tired of.
Could I
I
ask?
agree with that.
Is
But
there
you
a-
have teachers that's their goal is to get the kids, and I've seen it where they're just trying to get the kids, not services, but because they pose a behavior problem. So then they do stuff to escalate the students or the student. And then that's how they get their data to get them placed either in BD and alternative schools. So if they're going to have mental health counselors, they need to be used effectively. They need to be able to show that they are making progress with students, because if not, then it's just a waste of money.
Indeed. Dorothy, I think you were trying to say something.
Well, I was just trying to take a note. When she was saying that there's a personal opinions, I mean, is this a teacher who doesn't want to hear your opinion? And so she's not thinking about the student who needs to, have a diverse education. Who is she? Is it all about her and what she doesn't want to hear, or is she saying the children shouldn't hear? I don't understand what she's.
That's a really good question. Sounds to me like it was an email to the staff. It wasn't even an email to the students. So I think she's worried about hurting other staff members' ears with her message. And the thing is this teacher reached out to me because there's no process. There's no escalation process within JCPS for them to address this type of situation. And that's why we started a group called Teachable Moments. So we take screenshots like this and put it in our Facebook group and then send the unredacted version to the district in the hopes that they're going to do something about it. But we have found that the district's internal investigations team is biased, and they're rigging the investigations to side with the white teachers. So we've got some work to do, which is why one of the other demands as this coalition continues to move forward is something similar to what the Kentucky Alliance has called for with the police department, and that is a civilian review board. We need something similar in JCPS that allows the civilians to review these types of investigations, because we know that corrupt entities cannot investigate themselves. And in fact, that is what leads to corruption. So even if they're not corrupt, there should be an outside review process that does not currently exist. So we're going to continue to press for that as part of our demands.
Thank you.
Yvonne, did I introduce you yet? Did you say hello?
No, I sneaked in like the loser that I am. I went to a Canva PD, and at the end I realized the PD was on like a Google Classroom alternative called Canvas. 30 minutes of my life on there. I kept thinking, you can do all this stuff in Canva. Oh my God. I was like, and then I realized, no, this is Pepsi to Google Classroom's Coke. I can't use this. I double checked. We can't. So sorry that I was not here on time doing the right thing.
You're fine. I just want to give you a chance to introduce yourself, tell everybody who you are and who you're with. And I'm going to go back to this screen right here and ask you to pick a number and tell us where you stand on the tax increase.
I'm probably a 4.5 because I think they're going to come around. Am I more optimistic than most people?
We've had all kinds. For the most part. And, you know, like Michelle said, in order to get the district to move, we have to, our coalition really needs to sit on the side of the we don't support until we see these things, because they are not just going to say, oh, trust us. Well, they will say, just trust us. And we know that that doesn't work. So, but that's where we stand. Like I personally stood even outside further to the right than you. But I recognize that we're building a coalition, so we need to embrace the least of these. Bring forward the concerns of our most vulnerable and our most impacted community members, and then that will include us. So moving along, did anyone else have any thoughts on this list of demands? And I want to point out that I'm calling them reasonable demands because they are, but also because the word demands sometimes puts people on the defensive. It gives people an excuse to not do the right thing because they didn't like how we asked, right? So I just put reasonable demands because that's what they are. And I don't know what you think about the EARN acronym. Some people can help me work on that between now and when we make this go public, but I thought it was a simple way to peg. It's a memorization technique to just peg the 4 things we're trying to remember. And Latasha is trying to get back in.
Oh, there was a message I was supposed to deliver to Michelle Penix. And that is that Rachel Schwager sends her love.
Thank you.
All right, so Latasha's trying to rejoin, but I don't see her, so I'll give that a minute. In the meantime, those are the 4 things that make up EARN. Okay, so the next screen I'm just going to blow through these really quick. I just want those who are new to the call to be aware that over the past 5 weeks, this is some of the work that's already been done and how we have come to consensus on these items so far. This is the Demand Safe Schools list, and everyone in the coalition supports these. So that was an easy way to just get some stuff out of the way, and then most of the things we're working on roll up under these particular bullets. These are some of the student assignment plans that we talked about on an earlier call, which I've already really gone into and talked about at a higher level, but here is some of the more detailed level, just so you know we have extensive lists, and we'll continue to make this working document be as full and rich and robust and detailed as possible. We also have, these are just some of the screens of some of the local implementation, the shorter term. Why we're starting with student assignment is because it is on the agenda and it is tied to the tax increase, as Michelle pointed out. And hang on, I'm trying to move it forward. All they've done in my view, and I think most of the people on this call's view would hopefully agree, is all it really seems that they've done is taken the map where students are bussed out and updated it for 2020, which is great. It needed to be done, but it still didn't address the broader inequities that exist in our plan. It's kind of like they just wanted to tweak this part over here and not address some of the more significant changes that need to be made. But also it's a slippery slope because it actually takes away things that we know are popular in our community. We know that busing is popular in our community. We know that when school board candidates run for office and they say they're going to end busing, they always lose. So this feels a lot like step one of a two-step how to end busing plan that we won't know that's what they did until it's too late. And here comes the Tasha. And so that's a concern I have as well. Removing the application barrier, this is just a screenshot about that. Back to the earning the demands, I just brought this slide back in because I wanted to tie it all back together with the resolution because that was really just student assignment. The resolution is the next thing, and I thought I had a slide for that, but maybe I don't. I also have additional demands that we will continue to put into the people's agenda, even though the 4 bulleted things that we rattle off real quickly, most of this, if not all of this, rolls up under these more detailed explanations. We just don't want to lose any of it, right? We want to keep carrying all of this forward. So, okay, here's the resolution slide. This is the screenshots. These are the screenshots of the examples from that current resolution that exists. And so this is one of the things that we want to see passed before September 29th. And we're going to hopefully get a board member or two to embrace this. Both Joe Marshall and Corey Scholl have been on our prior calls, and Pastor Scholl indicated that this is a conversation that's long overdue. And I think, again, it's a matter of when. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. So we just keep getting our message out there and build that groundswell of community support and see if we can't get something to happen before it's too late. And so far in our 5 weeks that we've been meeting, we've revised the education component. We've gotten a motion passed by the Kentucky Alliance Board to revise the education component of the People's Agenda to include the JCPS budget. So that is what we did on our first call. We agreed to the Demand Safe Schools list, as I mentioned. We are agreeing to our position statement. We're still fine tuning it, but I think we agreed, and I'll go back and visit it again just at the end of the call to see if we want to tweak it one more time. And then our initial demands, the EARN, that acronym, we need to get some consensus on how we want to present that to the public. And then we also need to file a 501c4. And the reason we need to do that is because we will be lobbying we will be telling people to contact their board member to support the resolution. And then we will also be telling people to vote a certain way in November. And in order to do those things and not lose our 501c3 status, not put our tax status in jeopardy, we need to have a 501c4. And maybe we've gotten away with doing these things in the past. You can lobby up to 15 to 20% of your time and resources and not get in trouble. But also, we have to acknowledge that the climate is different right now. The privatizers are here. They may not have been here in 2002 or 2008 or when have you, but they're here now. And they have money and resources and time and a playbook. And they will look for every opportunity to waste our time swatting flies if we've done something that even looks like we shouldn't have done it. And why put ourselves in that position when it's avoidable? It's an $8 filing fee. The Kentucky Alliance, we voted to do this as a committee last week and took it back to the Alliance board. The Alliance board is still processing this request. And Tyra, if she's available to talk, maybe can give us an update on that in a minute. But as a committee, what I thought we might do is go ahead and get it a little bit more refined, to take it back to them again, and they'll call an emergency board meeting and introduce that motion then. But one of the concerns that the elders on the Alliance call had, hang on, Yvonne, was they didn't want to lose control of the people's agenda. And because we were going to call the Coalition for the People's, the 501c4, call it the Coalition for the People's Agenda, they didn't want to see that get co-opted by another organization with different leaders, et cetera. So one of the things that I think we can take back to the board is that it can be existing Kentucky Alliance board members serving on this. We only need 3. So I'd like to open up the floor not yet, because I see Yvonne has a hand up and I want to make sure we have some conversation first, but my suggestion would be that we open up the floor and see if we have enough Kentucky Alliance board members who are willing to serve as one of the 3 officers, so that we can go ahead and make sure that it stays in the parent organization. And as Yvonne has mentioned on some of the calls that she's been in before, the 501c3 meeting usually adjourns, they gavel out, then they just gavel right back in, and it's the same people. This is just the tools that the privatizers and the capitalists and the colonizers are using, and we need to make sure that we have the same tools in our toolbox that they have. Yvonne, you had your hand up, so please go ahead and.
2 quickie points, I promise.
Yes.
One is the League of Women Voters. I'm a board member. Their C3 has exactly the same people on it as their C4. Just as Gay said, we usually meet as a C4, but if we have a C3 thing to do, we gavel out, we gavel in, and then gavel out again and keep moving. It's identical board. So it's not a case of losing control or anything else. You know, you would have Kentucky Alliance board members as the slate of officers here. The other thing is, I want to piggyback on something Gay said about times being different. You know, once upon a time, our Attorney General was named Andy Beshear, and he was going to do right by us. But he is now governor. He's not in that position. And if you think Daniel Cameron is not going to have one standard for right to life and the Tea Party and, you know, fill in the blanks, and another one for us, you've not been paying attention. So, I mean, if he has a chance to stick it to anybody vaguely associated with progressive with progressive politics, you can bet he'll do it. He is not Mitch McConnell's protege for nothing. I'll shut up now.
Anyone else want to add anything or ask questions or discuss?
I'll just say, I think one of those, I think this is a big piece we need to discuss moving into the next Kentucky Alliance board meeting. And I think it's important that we have some things in place that establish first and foremost, in my mind, a lead, bookkeeper. And I do love the opportunities that having these paid officers could bring. And I think it could take the Kentucky Alliance to the next level operationally, but I think we need to have that discussion moving forward.
All right. Well, for the purposes of filing the paperwork, we just need 3 officers and articles of incorporation and some bylaws. And in order to write the bylaws, we need the 3 names and addresses of the officers. Thank you, Michelle, for joining us. Michelle had to drop off. So I would like to make a recommendation that we start with Black women, elevate Black women first. And Tyra and Tia are both board members. Did Tia drop off? Shoot, dropped off the call. I wonder if that was strategic. Tyra has.
Go
ahead.
Is she gone?
She's not on the call at the moment. She may have had bad connection or something.
Okay.
But Tyra has indicated she'd be willing to serve, so that would be one name. And we were going to ask Tia if she would like to serve. That would be another name. So I don't know if we want to open up the floor for nominations. And go ahead, Yvonne.
You know, the rule of nonprofit organizations is do not go to the bathroom. So, since KA did not have the good sense to be here, I nominate him.
He's actually here, and he also said he was willing.
Oh, good! So I didn't even have to use the bathroom clause.
KA?
Yes, I'm here.
Are you willing to serve as one of the 3 officers on the 501c4?
I'm willing to consider it. I mean, if that's something that the Kentucky Alliance Board wants for this new process, and particularly if Tia and Tyra is something that they really want to do.
All right. So what my recommendation is that we take a slate back to the board so that it's one less thing that we bat around at the board level. And so I recommend that we take a slate of 3 officers that is Tyra, Tia, and KA if they're willing. Maybe we get a 4th.
I don't have a problem with that, Gay. I am going to mention, I don't think it's fair to ask Antonio or whoever we have that that is doing bookkeeping to ask them to do this out of the kindness of their heart. And I think it's an important piece of what we need to make it work successfully.
So in order to file your articles of incorporation, you just need 3 executive directors. You don't need to name your treasurer yet. You don't need to name your secretary or any of those things. So I agree with you. I don't want to put any additional work on anyone either. We will be doing our own separate fundraising. So we will have our own separate bank account. And Antonio would not be expected to automatically be our bookkeeper. If we had the funds available to hire a bookkeeper, that would be great. But getting started without any funds raised, I don't think that we can anticipate that that will be where we start. I have indicated that I'm willing to serve as treasurer. I don't want to be one of the executive directors, but I'm willing to serve as treasurer and be as public and transparent as possible with the money that is raised. Because again, keeping scrutiny off of us is going to be my number 1 concern. So that it doesn't place an additional burden on our other officers, I'm willing to do that, but I certainly don't have to be. I understand your concern and I agree with it. But I don't think that we should let that prevent us from having the tool at our disposal and that protection.
I'm sorry, say that one more time.
I don't think our concern for who's going to do the bookkeeping at this juncture should prevent us from having that tool and protection at our disposal. I think we can figure that part out. And if there's an immediate need for an answer and you guys are okay with me serving as treasurer, then I'm willing to do that. So does that address your concern, or are there still concerns?
Well, I'd still like to, I think we need to have this conversation. Are we looking to put it into a proposal? Is that the goal?
I would like, okay, I'll make a motion then, since we're just kind of dancing around this. I would like to nominate or make a motion that we take to the board, the Kentucky Alliance Board, a slate of officers. Let's do that one first. I make a motion that we take to the Kentucky Alliance Board a slate of officers that we choose today for their consideration and ultimate approval.
Okay.
Yes, Chris?
I guess the slate officer seems ahead of what is it that the board of the Alliance will need to see to justify the 501c4 as I think I hear it. This is so you can do more explicit grassroots lobbying, which is you can't do under 501c3, which is what the Alliance is. You're expecting to get this 501c4 up, running, approved by IRS before the election day?
No, sir. I have a desire to be able to say that we have filed for 501c4 status. Period. It's a layer of protection. You have 60 days after you file to get everything up and running and approved by the IRS. And so just because we can't get it done by November 3rd all the way through is no reason to not start, is my concern. So I would like to get this ball in motion so that we can tell people, anyone who wants to say that we're violating our 501c3, we can say we have filed for 501c4 status. One layer of scrutiny off of us, because otherwise, I don't know how we can do any of this work. I am not going to be, I'm not willing to have my name in the paper. Gay Adelman violated Kentucky Alliance's 501c3 status and has cost the organization its approval. So I'm out if I don't feel like we have the right kind of structure.
And again, I would like to stress that things are different. We have a slate of constitutional officers that are all Republican. So the places we need to be looking towards are places like Wisconsin, where churches could do whatever the hell they wanted. But unions and progressive organizations were hounded by their attorney general, their governor, because they gerrymandered it to within an inch of their life and had one of the hardest, voter ID things, and until recently, the courts. That's the goal for here.
Plus, the ultimate decision is up to the Alliance Board. All we're doing is taking them a recommended slate of officers and a recommendation. That's what committees do. So I'm not exactly sure why why is this a debate? This is a best practice that organizations use. We're trying to just move this along so that it's easier for the Alliance Board to say yes. So if we get the first motion out of the way, then the next thing we'll do is nominate a slate. And I think that slate should look like Tia, Tyra, and KA, with maybe an alternative in case Tia says no.
I would second that nomination. I do want to iron out some wrinkles between now and the board meeting on treasurer stuff, but I
Not a problem. Not a problem. So we have a second for the first motion. Is there any discussion before we call for a vote?
What was the first motion? I'm sorry.
So the first motion is that we make a recommendation to the Alliance Board to adopt the slate of officers. And then our second motion is going to be to determine what that slate of officers looks like for the 501c4.
And that would be you, Tyra, Tia, and KA.
It would be Tyra, Tia, and KA with an alternative. We don't have the alternative figured out yet. Maybe you, Greg.
As long as it's not me. I was told there would be no math.
So my suggestion earlier, maybe this wasn't made real clear. My suggestion earlier is that it needs to be Kentucky Alliance Board members. So there's only 5 or 6 of us on this call. Anyway. So lifting up Black women first, Tia and Tyra, and then KA would be the third, unless Tia says no, and then it would need to be one of the other Kentucky Alliance Board members, not myself. I'm not wanting to be one of the. So end of discussion. I guess raise your hand. Can I get a show of hands if you're in favor?
It's easier done with Microsoft Teams, I'm found.
Yeah.
Raising hands side of
All right,
things.
well, then let's do it this way. Any objections? Say no.
I object to Microsoft Teams, but definitely not this proposal.
All right, so if that's any indication, then I would say this motion passed. And then the next motion would be to nominate a slate of officers.
You're freezing up, Gay. I'd say, Matt, you got a question time for Tyra.
I do. Tyra, you here?
Yes, I am.
Cool. So I put a document up top that I started just getting Michelle's and Tia's concrete points. And so we have a board meeting, it's might be too soon, September 10th and one October 8th. So I was going to email Brent and see if they could speak at this meeting and address some of these questions.
That'll be fine.
What's that?
I said that'll be great.
Okay, cool. Do you think emailing him tonight about the 10th is too short notice?
If he can, about the 10th.
Yeah.
Ooh. It shouldn't be.
Cool. So I'm going to put that. If you can't get it in, then we'll do the 8th. I was also wondering, like, what organization should I be saying that they're representing?
That who's representing? I'm sorry.
Tia and Michelle.
Okay. Oh. Tia outside. Tia, oh, it should be the Kentucky Alliance.
Okay.
Michelle, I guess she's on the education committee.
So education committee from what?
From the Kentucky Alliance's education, People's Agenda Education Committee.
Okay, so but both Kentucky Alliance.
Yeah.
Cool. Do you mind if I CC you on that and then say that you and I would both like them to speak?
Yeah.
Cool. That's all. That's all I wanted to ask you.
Okay. I'm sitting here in my mask. I'm telling you all, I don't care if you have a mask on, 6 feet. 6 feet with your mask. Even with your mask, you stand 6 feet.
You look good, Tyra.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I feel good. I just couldn't taste or smell. My smell is coming back, but I still really can't taste a lot of my food. Yeah, that was horrible. Horrible. So I lost 6 pounds.
Oh my God, did you get tested?
Yeah, I got tested last Thursday. My symptoms started Sunday evening, and I got tested. I did a rapid because I didn't want to wait 2 and 3 weeks for my test to come back, and it came back positive. I was like so shocked. I was shocked. I was like, oh my gosh. And I said, the nurse came and I said, you got to be effing kidding me. And she just saw the devastation in my face. Like, she stood out there for about 5 minutes consoling me, because I was like, are you kidding? I can't believe this. So yes, yeah. So, but now Diallo, he doesn't have his taste or smell. We haven't had a temperature or anything, but he goes tomorrow to be tested. And his started this Saturday just passed, so he has to wait until Saturday after next before he can, but he hasn't really been around anybody. So I know I gave it to him. So, yes, thank you. I am. I think I was more so, mentally, I was messed up. I was.
Glad to hear you're feeling okay though, Tyra.
I got it. I was like, as long as I can go outside and not have to stay in my room, because I was in my room, so that the rest of the house, and then like I'm out now, just right here, but I will spray my Lysol as I'm going back. And that's because I'm barbecuing, so I haven't been cooking in the kitchen. I've been putting stuff on the grill and bringing it in the house, and that's how we've been eating. Or I've been ordering out a lot too. So it's crazy. It's crazy. So I think we have a board meeting at 6:30.
Be careful how you use that word "we." I hope I'm not in on that.
I'm getting ready to look to see.
Well, did you find out if there's going to be an emergency board meeting? I heard rumors about it, but I didn't see anything flying.
There is one emergency officers meeting right now. Let me put it like that. We have an emergency officer meeting due to some questions about certain things and trying to clear things up with about finances. And that all started with Robin on last Thursday, as usual.
There won't be a discussion on the 501c4 on that call.
No.
All right.
That's Thursday, though. What do we have? We're having a unity dinner meeting. Hold on,
Is the reporter still on the call?
Huh?
Is the reporter still on the call?
Is the reporter still on the call?
It does not look like
I forgot. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. I didn't want to say.
Be sure. Always be sure who's on the call.
I forgot we had a reporter. I did. I heard it at the beginning, but yeah, we just have to.
I already got her. She's on background anyway, so she's not going to be able to quote or use anything we tell her.
So Gay was in the middle of motions. Tyra, am I supposed to be on that on the committee planning the unity dinner?
I think I sent it out to the entire board. So
Okay.
Whoever is wanting to come, like we have, is it the unity dinner, KA? It's too many meetings.
I hear you. I'm interested, but I've got a commitment Thursday night, so keep me on the list.
Okay. Let me see. Tonight is a meeting.
Poor Greg. He's got a committee meeting at 7 and another one at 7:30. It's crazy.
So I kicked off the my screen my slides that I was sharing. That computer got kicked off the Zoom. Can you see me waiting in the waiting room?
So Tyra, unity dinner is 6:30 on Thursday. Is that what you're saying?
I think it's 6:30 today.
No, you got your officers meeting, right? That's
The
today. Your officers
is 6:30 Thursday. Today at 7. I'm sorry. Today at 7 is the unity dinner. Today at 7 is the unity dinner.
I still have a few things that we need to accomplish before people jump off. So can you add me back as host so I can share my slides again?
Oh, I do have to admit you don't.
Yeah, because when I lost internet, it put you back as host.
Okay, hold on.
And then you'll have,
Okay,
and am I able to share my screen again? Can you tell?
you should be able to. Hold on. Because you're host. I don't see it yet.
I see it. I gotta.
I can't
Oh,
finish.
disabled.
I can't finish the food.
Did you make the Dear JCPS one the host, or did you make me?
Dear JCPS.
All right. Well, it's not. Is host disable participant screen sharing? If you go to the Dear JCPS logo and allow me to share my screen or something, is that an option?
Your host.
You're showing up in two screens for me, Gay. One with your name and one with your.
Let me make this one host. Yeah, you have. Hold on. Wait a minute. I'm going to participants. There's two with.
So make 7 Gay Alderman co-host. I think is the wrinkle.
Right. It's not letting me do anything. You have to go to one of yours to make yourself the host.
Yeah, funny.
You have two Dear JCPS. You're signed in on two different Dear JCPS.
And Yvonne's also signed in under Dear JCPS. Yvonne, can you check and see if you are a host by any chance?
Why am I Dear JCPS? How did that happen?
I don't know.
How do I know this? If I'm host?
Yvonne, don't you have your Dear JCPS t-shirt on?
Actually, I have my Troublemakers Union t-shirt on. Okay, how do I know if I'm the host here? What should I see?
If you can share your screen. When you go down to the bottom where it says share.
No, it's not.
Okay, it does let me share my screen.
Oh, wow.
Okay, how do I undo?
Make me host. Make the other Dear JCPS host.
Okay, I can do that? Okay. She says?
The one with the logo.
Okay. Oh, dear God in heaven.
I'm sorry, I'm not laughing at you.
You should be laughing at me.
Yeah, ever since
Yay!
Michelle
dropped off. Don't say anything funny. You're going to make Tyra cough.
We can't let Penix drop off anymore because this meeting's gone downhill.
Yeah.
Oh, what
I'm
happened?
so sorry.
Okay.
Why she have to leave?
She had another call, she said. All right, I'm sharing my screen, which right now doesn't look very impressive. Slides. We were in the middle
I see it.
Yes.
Of the second motion, which was to have 3 slates plus an alternate, slate recommendations plus an alternate. So are we good with Tyra, Tia, and AA with Greg as an alternate? Did I hear Greg?
Oh,
you hear that, Greg?
Greg Tishner.
You're not waiting for me to second that, are you?
He did hear it.
Are you willing to serve if tapped?
I would.
All right.
Oh.
So the motion is the 3 executive directors for the 501c4 that we take back to the Kentucky Alliance board to vote on is Tyra, Tia, and KA, with Greg as an alternate in case one of the initial 3 decide not to. Do I have a second?
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Blasted.
All right. So moving on. The next slide I have is about our tools of leverage. I just want to talk about what we're going to do with our ability to lobby, right? So we're going to have meetings and continue to get meetings with board members and the superintendent, and Matt's arranging the meeting with JCPA. Like, those are all important. As well as town halls, taking that same information out to the community through virtual forums, similar to what we've been doing with KEU and some other organizations. Also getting endorsements, so getting individuals as well as organizations to say they support our coalition work and our list of demands. Again, swaying public opinion, getting opinion letters submitted to the paper, getting testimonials from individuals who have firsthand experience with the demands that we're making and explaining why these demands are meaningful. We can canvass, we can actually go out and put literature in people's newspaper slot boxes. We can put stickers on doors. We could talk to people door to door, but we're probably not going to do that right now during COVID. But those are examples of some of the canvassing work that's currently being done this election cycle, and we would just emulate those types of practices as well.
I have a question.
Let's go.
Is there any thought to go through churches like Reverend Scholl's churches, blah, blah, you know, whatever?
Yes. Okay. So I have another slide where I think it's still a couple. Yeah, it's the next one where we talk about individuals by name. And on a previous slide, I had put churches and independent media, and there was a third category that are broader groups. And then obviously coalition members. So I'll go, let me touch on this slide a little bit longer, and then we'll go down to that, because those are good questions. The resolution is a tool of leverage. If we can get the board to pass the resolution and demonstrate their good faith commitment to the agenda for the coalition, for the Coalition for the People's Agenda, we need to lobby our school board members ahead of that September 29th meeting. Right now, we don't have 7 board members who would vote in favor of this, so we have work to do. And like I said, it's not a matter of yes or no, it's a matter of when. So ideally, it's in their best interest to get this passed by September 29th, especially if the language we're using is what was suggested, which is we don't support the tax increase unless. So if they wait until September 29th, then they should be pretty much in the clear of absentee ballots and various other things. But if it doesn't pass by September 29th and people start turning in their absentee ballots and we're telling people we don't support the tax increase yet, then that's going to cost them some votes on the tax increase in the absentee and mail-in ballot process. So their ultimate deadline is October 13th, when the mail-in ballots start being received and people start turning in their absentee votes. But there's not a board meeting before October 13th. So unless they call an emergency board meeting, which they still can choose to do, but right now the focus needs to be on the September 29th board meeting, because right now that's the only one that exists ahead of the October 13th deadline. So that's the rationale there. We can continue to hold rallies, protests, motor marches, things that will get visibility, especially since we still don't have the ability to speak at board meetings. We still don't have the ability to have our voices heard at a board meeting. We can turn in written notes and the notes are filed with the minute, but there is no opportunity to actually hear our inflections in our tones, in our voices. And not only that, the rest of the public isn't able to hear it, so that we can build on each other's ideas and do the coalition building work that needs to happen to get everybody on the same page. So we're left with whatever tools exist, because they've taken that one away from us. We talked about literature. We can have hashtags, social media. When we do some fundraising, we can run ads on social media and be protected under our 501c4 that way. We can do a video campaign where we ask people to submit videos and put together some kind of quote unquote commercial that we maybe can get to go viral, especially if we get some notables. On the next slide, we'll talk about some of the notable potential people that might endorse us, that would be willing to be spokespeople, for example, for this campaign. And in fact, some people on this call might be willing to be spokespeople on behalf of this campaign, but we're not going to put anybody on the spot just yet. We've got a pledge. So I want to share a different screen in a second, maybe after I finish this slide. But we tried doing a pledge earlier where basically we just asked people to sign on and agree to support the coalition at an individual level. And that gives us the ability to collect their email addresses and continue to communicate to them, especially since it's a contingent block vote. So if we're collecting email addresses and the board does act in good faith, and as a coalition, we vote and move forward that we agree that the district is acting in good faith and we're going to come out in support of the tax increase at some point, we need a way to communicate to people. So we need to do a pledge and collect that information ahead of time, just like you were if you were a candidate running for office. This is not much different than a political campaign that any candidate for office would be running. They need to collect information from potential voters, and then they need to continue to market to those potential voters and raise funds and do the things like an individual candidate like we would in order to get the vote out. So I explained block vote briefly, lobbying voters to turn out. That would be a separate campaign where we're getting in front of individuals to have them contact the board members or getting in front of individuals to show up on November 3rd. And 2 of our current board races have challengers. Brady is not running again, so there's 2 candidates up for election, and Sarah McIntosh has been on our calls. She is more supportive of the coalition work than her challenger. So
her challenger, just to put it out there, is straight Tea Party crazy.
And racist. She has
yeah,
and other.
That is all one package.
On her, on her Facebook page. So we need to be highlighting her and Linda Duncan as unfit to serve while we're at it, but we can address that later. So that's one seat that has some potential for visibility on this topic, and then a more possibly visible board seat. And in fact, after we sent our email last week to the board and to the superintendent and to the media with our objection to the fact that we couldn't speak and that we had some concerns that we wanted to make them aware of, we did hear back from Chris Kolb. He was not supportive of our messaging. He feels like, I made a mention earlier of a board member who thinks that $50 million and more choices is sufficient, something along those lines. He made a comment along those lines. So we clearly have work to do with him if we want to earn his vote. But the good news is he does have a challenger who is left of him, if you want to look at it that way, in regards to social justice work. And he's been on our calls before and indicates that he is supportive of our position. So if showcasing the fact that we have support from a challenger helps him make better choices, then I'm okay with that too. And then we also have the ultimate vote of no confidence in our leadership. If this continues to go on and the district continues to shut doors in our faces as they've been doing and continuing to work with these big white-led elite bureaucratic organizations like Evolve 502 and Compassion Schools and groups that don't return calls from the Louisville PTOs of this world and the Dear JCPSs of this world and the Kentucky Alliances of this world, and the doors just continue to be shut, then at some point we could call for a vote of no confidence in our superintendent, as we've done in the past. As a community, we've done that before, and it certainly is not off the table. They need to know that our tools are not off the table, because if they think that we don't mean what we say, or we're going to buckle or fold or settle when we're not ready to settle, then they're not going to take us seriously. So these are just some of the examples of tools of leverage. If you guys have any other thoughts or suggestions, yeah. All right, Chris, can I share publicly with what you just shared with me privately?
I just wanted you to see it first. I'll say it. I want to get on record that I think the People's Agenda as a working document, you know, and getting that in some kind of prioritized shape and then getting a large coalition to advocate for it. I'm absolutely for it personally, and I suspect Eros would line up behind lobbying for it before and after the election. I think hanging a decision to block vote against the tax increase on a resolution being passed on the 29th is set up for failure. There's a work session coming up Tuesday, which is the last chance they would have to publicly discuss such a resolution. It hasn't even been written, and the working document has not been finalized in a way that it could be referenced in that thing. I don't want to sacrifice the People's Agenda work for just a real starting failure with this thing with the resolution. That's my personal opinion.
I hear you. You know, it's not like we didn't try to start this sooner though.
It's 3 weeks from tonight.
Yeah, I'm gonna express some skepticism around the idea of the block vote altogether. I mean, you can gain a commitment. I think I wonder if there's not another way to express that to suggest we need the support of the people. I don't know if I'm babbling, but you know, the idea that I say I'm going to vote one way doesn't mean that's the way I'm going to vote for it.
Right, and we can't make anybody vote a certain way, Greg. Obviously, that's not how block votes really work, but getting people to sign a pledge so that we get their email address so that we can remain in contact with them is what politicians do all the time. And I would also like to point out that the two individuals who think that this may be set up for failure or has some downside to it are white men. No offense, I'm married to a white man, and I have 2 white men for sons. But what we really have to do here is lift up the Black female voices first, and then our Black community altogether. And in the calls I've been in and the meetings I've been in, and I don't know who's still on this call.
So why don't we say center Black women's voice instead of block vote? That's what I'm asking.
As an organization, we're going to center Black women's voices. How do we get people to commit to the district accountable around that?
I'd just like to have that discussion because I think it's another way to frame that.
Yeah, if you say we want a prioritized agenda based on the kind of things that Michelle and Tia have been saying that we work on, I think you will get support for Black women's voices.
What's that look like though? How does the district demonstrate their good faith effort? What are we asking them to do?
May I weigh in? And I promise it will be short. I think we are all ignoring the elephant in the room, which is there are people in the West End who do not think. They think they will, whether they rent or own a home, even if they rent, it'll be indirectly, their landlord will raise their rent to pay the extra tax. They think they're going to pay more money and everything good is going to go to the East End.
Going to go where, Yvonne?
To the East End.
Oh. Yeah.
You know, when Ballard High School wanted its field fixed, they're going to get that done because the people who go there, their parents have money. We need something. If I were smart enough to know this, I would be Joe Biden's vice presidential nominee, not Kamala Harris. So I don't know the answer because I'm not that smart. But there needs to be a good faith effort to these people that says, hey, you know what? We have indeed screwed you in the past, but we promise we're going to do this, this, and this.
And here's how we're proving it to you.
And that will at least, will that work for 100%? Maybe, maybe not. But for sure, telling people who say, I don't think this is going to help our kids, that this money's not going to trickle down to us, telling them nothing, I'm pretty sure that's not going to sway anyone. And now I promise to shut up.
Yvonne, I think you're absolutely right. And I have to take off, but before I leave, I just wanted to say I sent that email to Brent and Tyra. You're copied on that. And we added 2 more things. Look at those notes at all on there. It's in the chat. Tia wanted me to add, I forgot to include it. Just none of the money goes towards hiring police in our schools, so we know that. But also, JCTA lobbies for defunding the police as a state law. That's been sent to Brent, and I think the JCTA board and Tyler, whatever your thoughts on this, I think the board is in total alignment with all of this. And we need to get everybody a seat at the table, just bottom line. So that's on Brent's desk, and I think it's time for to get some more speakers in JCTA and get some more voices heard in there, like Michelle.
Right.
This is Dorothy Foster. I'm listening in, and I'm with ASALA, which is the Association for Studies of African American Life and History. And when you're talking about reaching Black women and voices, some of the Black organizations that are anywhere from ASALA to the sororities, if reach out to Black women who can advocate for what you are trying to present to the school board, maybe they would be active in the community, in their churches, as part of these organizations that are composed primarily of the Alpha Phi Alpha, the Delta Sigma Theta. These are all Black sororities. Is there objection to using, to reaching out to those Black women?
No objection whatsoever, but what are we reaching out to them with if we're not telling them that we're advocating for a resolution be passed at a board meeting? So like what are we asking them to sign on to? What do we have to offer? What are we going to give Tia that's going to prevent her from canvassing against this tax increase?
I think you would get people who would support her and support what you're asking. They may be supporters who verbally want to say something, that you may have them as fundraisers for raising more money to get what you need, or to be stronger in, in your demands. I just think when I heard you were reaching out to Black women, in ASALA, we have women, Black women, some older women like myself, but we may not be able to do a lot, but we have telephones that we can use to call people and
but what I'm getting at,
I just think when you say Black women, you may want to reach out to some that you haven't talked to before.
absolutely, absolutely. But as this coalition work has been evolving, the Black women who are already coming to our meetings and are already on our calls are being ignored right now. And that's what I have concerns about. Tia was on this call. She said, I'm going to go out and tell people to vote against this tax increase if we don't get some of these good faith efforts moving forward. So I agree that they might support Tia if we go out, but unfortunately that message is vote against the tax increase if that's all we have, because we don't have any kind of demand for them to meet if we don't put this resolution on the table. And so I hear Chris's concern that it's 3 weeks out and it's short notice. Well, that's on the district. Tyra and I met with Marty back in May and told him this was coming. So if he's not prepared for it, that's on him. And if they want to call an emergency board meeting in October or November and realize that we're serious, then that's what they got to do.
What they need to realize is that they don't have the black vote and that they need to do something to get the black vote. And it's like they're not trying. It's like they think they have it in the bag. But as I've stated, Black people are woke. In the community, they are woke now. If they were sleeping before, they are wide awake and they know what they want for their kids. And just because we have you building another school in our downtown still is not sufficient. It's not anything that we're going to like, oh, yes, we get another school. What are you going to put in that school?
Right.
Are you going to have teachers in there that are willing and ready, that's going to effectively teach our babies and their needs? That's what we want. And I made a suggestion about that third floor at Shawnee. Yes, we have all these magnet programs, but we don't really have anything that caters to the African-American community. And I'm not saying the kids, you know, they're living a pipe dream. They want to perform. They want this, that, and the third. But, you know, our kids like music. And if they want to be a rapper or whatever they want to be, I ain't gonna say actor, a rapper or singer, why don't we have that magnet program on the third floor or even in all over Shawnee, where they have someone that can teach them how to engineer their music. So when they do become a rapper, they don't have to spend all their money in a studio paying for somebody to engineer something that they already know how to do.
Well, and in addition, those who can't like to engineer. I can't sing, so you know what I did? I joined the band. Maybe you can't sing, but you can be a recording engineer.
Right.
It's the equivalent.
Right. So
Like
I mean,
AMP.
it's just,
You're
and
talking
then
about
I
like
mean,
AMP, aren't you?
huh?
Byron?
Yeah. Yes.
Just like AMP, yeah.
Just like AMP. But
Yeah.
it's in
But
a school.
expanded.
We need something that's going to attract our students, be attractive to our students. Yes, we want our kids to be doctors, lawyers, and all that good stuff. But you know what? Everybody's not going to be a doctor. Everybody's not going to be a lawyer. They're going to be something different. So offer those same different magnet programs. It's going to be attractive. Let's get a survey out here and ask our students, what is it they want to see in this school? And give them some, you know, some options. Let's hear from our kids. We do take for granted we take them for granted that they don't know what they want. They do.
So to the point, right now, if the vote was called, it would not pass because we know the Black community in particular is not ready to just show up at the polls and vote in favor. What are we going to do to take to that community the survey like Tyra talked about, but feeding that survey results back to the community so they hear their concerns promised back to them, right? That is what the resolution is going. The resolution is going to be more broad and more vague and simply say we support the Coalition for the People's Agenda. The Coalition for the People's Agenda is a working document that will continue to evolve beyond November. So that's where the more of the survey responses and the language would show up. What we need to know before September 29th is that the district is no longer shutting doors in our faces, but they're actually recognizing that we're not crazy, that they need the Black vote. And the response we got from Chris Kolb needs to be not coming out, more rhetoric like what we heard from Chris Kolb is going to cause us to vote against the tax increase. If his tone changes and other board members start to sound more like Corey and Joe, and we see that the district is acting in good faith, then we're going to tell people to come out and vote in favor. And whether people sign our block vote or not does not prevent us from going door to door in the West End and door to door in the Highlands and Crescent Hill and telling people what's at stake and how they need to vote in November. And by golly, I will be out there with Tia doing it if we can't get the district to change its tune. So what does that look like? I think a resolution is a reasonable request. It doesn't have to be elaborate. They've got attorneys. They've got Jonathan, why am I drawing a blank on his last name?
Low.
Jonathan Lowe. He's good at these things. Let him put his talent to work and get something on the agenda before September 29th. It's not unreasonable. And if they can't do it by September 29th, then they need to call an emergency board meeting, because we are going to be protesting and we are going to be having these town halls, and they're going to end up with egg on their face because the music, as I told KA today, the music has stopped. People are taking chairs. There are going to be people caught without chairs. There is no question about it. Which side of history are you going to be on when the dust settles? Dr. Polio has a chance to come out as a hero in this, or we're going to call for his resignation. It's up to him. The ball is in their court, and I don't think taking the resolution off the table 5 weeks in, after we've already been talking, this isn't a new concept. Corey knows about it. Joe knows about it. Lisa Wilner came on our call last week and talked to us about it. They know, they're talking. They know what we cover on these calls. Why do you think that Marty said, Dr. Polio said on the last call that the current student assignment plan had been put through the REAP? Because they're trying to make us look like we are making unreasonable demands. They're trying to discredit us right now. Why do you think Chris Kolb wrote what he wrote in his reply email that maybe not everybody on this call has seen? But if somebody else wants to talk about that for a second, we are in a position to hold people accountable, and we need to be doing that.
I don't have a problem with the resolution. I don't have problems with a lot of these tools of leverage. I do have a problem with you calling me out for being a white male for asking a question on one of them. I do have a problem with that.
I'm sorry, Greg. I didn't call you out for asking a question. I called out something that I've been experiencing in Eros and now on some other calls. So my awareness of it is heightened. And that is simply that the people who drag their feet oftentimes are the white people. And we need to stop doing that.
Now, I'm going to have to get off of here because I have a meeting in 7 minutes that I have to log in and get people in too. I don't think this will cut me off.
Anything you want to add before you go, Tyra, about any of that? You agree?
I agree.
You support what I've been saying?
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay.
KA still on here?
I am, hold on. No, I'm here.
You have anything you want to add or respond to?
Not really.
All right. Latasha, you still with us?
I am still here.
What do you think?
I do agree that JCPS needs to make a commitment to the Black community. I do support what you're trying to do. And I just, probably about an hour ago, I reached out to Dr. Polio, telling him that I wanted to have a meeting with him. And hopefully Tyra and some other people will come with me. I'm supposed to reach out to his assistant to discuss what we spoke about. And I think from this point, it probably, it does need to be Black voices that talk to him so that he can understand it's us saying it, and they can take out the personal issues with dealing with gay.
I agree.
I'm saying right. I was muted.
All right, So we're still moving forward then. Thank you, ladies.
I also want to, I'll discuss, I don't know if we talked about this, but the safe return to schools. When I caught COVID, they're cutting grass. When I caught COVID, tested positive for COVID, everyone asked me, how did you catch it? You always have your mask on. I was like, I know, I do. And I was a firm believer then that the masks really don't help you from acquiring the disease or a virus. Then when Attica Scott, who I have encountered all summer long at Injustice Square, and she always has her mask on, and she will make you back up. You know, if you get too close, she's like, back up. And she got it. I am a firm believer that the masks do not work. So you can't tell, let me tell you what the solution is. Mask, and you need to be 6 feet away from me. Mask and 6 feet away from me. So when they talk about going back into schools, and my 5th grade teacher has 30 kids in her classroom, 30, how is she going to social distance from 30 kids? How are they going to social distance? Because see, I saw it last year and they were all on top of one another. It's not going to work. So I don't know. I will reach out to polio about that myself. So if you can't provide 6 feet in a classroom from each child and the teacher, then we don't need to be going back to school. That means we need more teachers and more classrooms, especially at Roosevelt Perry. We have 1 3rd grade, 1 4th grade, 1 5th grade. No, it's not going to work.
Yeah, that's a parallel issue, but it also comes up on September 29th because, Tyra, isn't that the first check-in point on NTI?
Yes.
I mean, I think this group would just instantaneously coalesce around what you just said, and I suspect JCPS would too. But I think we need to be thinking about that now rather than on the 29th.
Yes.
So we aren't protesting a decision, that we're influencing one.
Yes, because I mean, I don't know if it happened to me for this reason, for me to see that a mask does not work, and people can say, oh, you went out of town. And when I went out of town, I had on 2 masks. I had on a surgical mask and an N95. A surgical, and it had a surgical up under, over my mouth, and the N95 over top of the surgical in the airport and on the plane. But I didn't sit with people that I know, that like my friends. I sat with strangers. And then I went to Kroger. I went to work at Kroger. So I can't say that that's where this needs to be changed. That I can't say that's where I got it from either.
Okay.
Well, part of things you need to know what the mask is, you're down to like few percentage points if you're wearing a mask and the other person's wearing a mask. Right. Well, you know what those people are like in Kroger. I'm just saying.
Half of them know what they walk in the wine and spirits. I'm looking at like, And I'm like, well, I have on mine. You don't have on a mask. I'm not serving you. I'm sorry. I don't know what they're going to do at Kroger, because I'm not getting ready to go through this again. I'm going to say, y'all heard. And I said, this is another thing. I said, when I'm at work, I'm on the phone in the meeting. Who is that? What you want, baby? Sorry. Okay, I made some chicken and corn. It's in there. Chicken breast. He has dry food. I'm sorry. I thought that was the older one. That was my baby.
Well, that sounds good enough to risk COVID for. Sounds like a good dinner. I got to leave. I see it's 7 o'clock, so I got to get off of here. But
yeah, I just have a couple more slides.
Okay, and I'm gonna get off. But I forgot what I'm just gonna social distance. You stay away from me. Y'all better be able to work them registers, or let me work the register and y'all work the floor. I'm not gonna do both. Just stay away from me.
Thank you so much. I've got a meeting that begins 1 minute ago.
Yes.
So
Okay,
thank
hey,
you
I'm starting
guys.
the meeting.
All right.
Accounts,
See y'all.
I needed to talk about timelines and then just next steps. So, we need a town hall the Mondays before the 2 Tuesday meetings. So I'll follow up with you guys, I guess, on that since people are dropping off. All right, thanks everybody.
Gay, you're
Yeah.
gonna kill me. I have to end this meeting to start the new one.
That's okay. I've already said goodbye. So
Oh, okay.
make sure it saves it to the cloud or whatever. Or I guess I do that because I'm shutting it off, right?
Yeah.
All right.
All righty.
Thanks, everybody.
All right.
Bye-bye.